In the summer of 2015, the Charlie Charlie Challenge swept through social media like wildfire. Teenagers across the world were posting videos of themselves asking questions to a mysterious entity named Charlie, who would supposedly answer by moving pencils arranged in a cross on a piece of paper. Many saw it as a fun, spooky game, but others, including 17-year-old Emily and her friends, would soon learn that this game could invite something far darker than they had imagined. It was a warm Friday night when Emily invited her closest friends over for a sleepover, Lily, Katie, and her younger sister Sarah. The girls had heard about the Charlie Charlie Challenge at school and had watched countless videos online. Intrigued but skeptical, they decided to try it themselves during their sleepover. Emily had always been curious about the supernatural but had never experienced anything to confirm her beliefs. However, that night was about to change everything. Around 10 p.m., after watching some horror movies, they gathered in Emily's dimly lit bedroom. The only sources of light were a few flickering candles placed around the room, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Emily had prepared a piece of paper with 2 lines intersecting in the center to form a cross. In the top left and bottom right corners, she had written yes, while no was written in the top right and bottom left corners. The girls carefully balanced 2 pencils in a cross, with one pencil resting horizontally on top of the other. They sat in a circle, staring at the paper, each one feeling a mix of nervous excitement and skepticism. None of them really believed that the game would work, but the atmosphere in the room was thick with tension nonetheless. Emily cleared her throat and spoke, her voice slightly shaky. "Okay, I'll start. Charlie, Charlie, are you there?" At first, nothing happened. The pencils remained perfectly still. The girls exchanged relieved smiles, laughing nervously. "It's just a game," Katie said, rolling her eyes. "See, nothing's happening." Just as they were about to dismiss the game as a hoax, the top pencil began to slowly spin. All 4 girls froze, their laughter cut short. The pencil moved in a jerky, unsettling manner, eventually pointing to yes. The room fell into a tense silence. No one spoke for a moment, and all eyes were on the pencils. "Did you see that?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Lily, the most daring of the group, grinned despite the unsettling turn of events. "It's probably just the wind," she said, though the windows were closed and the air in the room was still. Wanting to prove it was all a joke, Lily leaned forward. "Charlie, Charlie, are you going to hurt us?" For a moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched on, and the girls began to relax. But then, ever so slowly, the pencil moved again. This time, it pointed to yes. The girls' faces went pale, and a cold chill seemed to sweep through the room, despite the warm summer night outside. Sarah, who had been sitting closest to the door, let out a soft whimper. "I don't like this," she whispered, inching closer to her older sister. Emily's hands were shaking now. "Let's just stop," she said. "It's just a stupid game. We'll say goodbye, and that's it." But before they could end the game, Katie spoke up, her voice full of false bravado. "Come on, it's not real. Look, I'll ask something else. Charlie, Charlie, are you here with us right now?" For a few moments, nothing happened. But then, as if in response, the room seemed to grow darker. The candles flickered violently, as though a sudden gust of wind had blown through the room. The pencil trembled on the paper, but it didn't move to yes or no. Instead, the door to Emily's room creaked open. The girls screamed in unison, their eyes darting to the doorway. It led to the dark hallway outside, where the shadows seemed to twist and move. Sarah, who had been closest to the door, scrambled backward in terror. "I saw something," she cried, her voice breaking. "There's something in the hallway." Emily rushed to the door, heart pounding in her chest. She peered into the darkness, but the hallway was empty. "There's nothing there," she said, trying to sound brave, but her voice shook. "Let's just stop this." She returned to the group, but before they could touch the pencils again, they heard a loud crash from downstairs. It sounded like something heavy had been knocked over, echoing through the house. The girls jumped in fear. "Did you hear that?" Katie asked, her eyes wide with terror. Emily nodded, her pulse racing. "We need to stop this," she repeated, her voice now filled with urgency. Lily, still determined to stay skeptical despite the growing fear in the room, said, "Let's just ask Charlie if we can stop." Emily took a deep breath and said, Charlie, can we stop?" They waited, but the pencil didn't move. The air in the room felt thick and suffocating. The candles flickered wildly again, casting strange shadows on the walls. Emily repeated the question, her voice trembling. Charlie, can we stop?" Still, there was no response. Suddenly, Emily's phone, which had been lying on the floor next to her, buzzed with a text message. She picked it up and stared at the screen, her face draining of color. The message was from an unknown number, and it simply read, **** Charlie is here, ***. Emily showed the phone to her friends, her hands shaking violently. "What the hell is this?" she whispered. Before anyone could respond, there was another loud crash from downstairs, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate footsteps, coming up the stairs. All four girls stared at the doorway, frozen in fear. The footsteps grew louder, closer, until they stopped right outside the room. The door, which had been ajar, creaked open slightly, as though something, or someone, was about to enter. In a panic, the girls grabbed their phones and ran out of the house, not daring to look back. They spent the night at Lily's house, huddled together in the living room, too scared to sleep. No one wanted to talk about what had happened. The next morning, they returned to Emily's house, hoping that the strange events of the previous night could be explained away in the light of day. But what they found when they entered the house only deepened their terror. In the living room, the furniture had been overturned. A vase that had been on the coffee table was shattered, and the curtains had been ripped from the windows. But the most disturbing sight was in Emily's bedroom. The piece of paper they had used for the game lay crumpled in the center of the floor. The pencils were gone, but written across the paper in jagged, dark letters were the words, ****, I am here, ****. Emily's parents, who had been out of town for the night, were just as baffled by the destruction in the house. They assumed it was some sort of prank, but Emily knew better. Something had answered their call during the game, and it had not left. In the days that followed, strange things continued to happen to Emily and her friends. Emily would wake up in the middle of the night to find her bedroom freezing cold, despite the warm summer weather. Objects in her room would be moved when she wasn't looking, and she often felt as though she was being watched. Worst of all were the nightmares, terrifying dreams in which she saw shadowy figures standing at the foot of her bed, whispering her name. Sarah, who had seen something in the hallway that night, was plagued by night terrors. She would wake up screaming, claiming that she saw a dark figure standing in her room, watching her as she slept. Katie and Lily also experienced strange occurrences. Both of them reported hearing footsteps in their houses at night and seeing flickers of movement out of the corner of their eyes. They couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed them from Emily's house. Emily tried to find a way to stop the haunting. She researched ways to break the connection with Charlie and even considered performing some kind of cleansing ritual, but nothing worked. Whatever they had summoned that night wasn't going away. Years later, Emily still refuses to talk about the full extent of what happened after that night. The Charlie Challenge, once a silly game they had played out of curiosity, had turned into a living nightmare. To this day, Emily warns others never to play the game. It's not just a game, she says. You're opening a door to something you can't control. You don't know what you're inviting in. What began as a harmless internet trend had spiraled into a terrifying ordeal that would haunt Emily and her friends for years to come.